here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Hi there. I'm honored to join you for the first talk today at Camp ADHD. That was Steve Jobs and the Think Different campaign more than 25 years ago. A truly timeless piece of inspiration, honoring some of the greatest pioneers and visionaries, innovators and revolutionaries that created the world we live in today. I wasn't aware of the campaign back then. I was only 6 at the time, around when my mom tried to take me to see a doctor for ADHD. We were in a third world country where ADHD was barely recognized and understood. In fact, people simply translated to be hyperactivity disorder. So it really wasn't a surprise, in retrospect, that even though I checked off all of the boxes, the doctors eventually decided I was totally fine, because, well, he can focus on things if he's interested. Yeah, as if hyperfocus wasn't a thing at all. That misdiagnosis turned out to be a curse and a blessing. The curse is probably very familiar to all of you here. 25 years later, I would still often find myself eating the first meal of the day, or drinking the first sip of water at 8 p.m., despite waking up at 5 a.m., thanks to hyperfocus. I only made it through school by setting the goalpost to be a C or a D for any subject I wasn't really interested in. I could not stand the repression it takes to hold on to jobs that require me to fit in the way most companies are run today. I could not when I was a low-level employee. I could not when I was leading an all-star Ivy League team at a Fortune 500 company, and I still could not even after I made it to the rank of CTO. I had gotten into so much trouble in school that I had a teacher suspended. I had gotten into so much trouble at work that I'd been fired weeks after I sent in my resignation. In fact, I almost did that twice, except the second time I decided it was not going to be worth my time or energy fighting with those who are just symptoms of a totally broken society that seems to be working for less and less people every day. The blessings, on the other hand, was quite a unique experience. The diagnosis gave me the confidence that there's nothing wrong with me, and to evaluate most of the frictions I experienced as something wrong with the society itself first. That led to an unbelievable journey that allowed me to fully comprehend the superpower that comes with ADHD without having to pay for most of the debilitating side effects. Disclaimer, do not try this at home yourself or on your kids. I am only able to live to tell this story today due to how incredibly lucky my life has been. It feels like I was allowed the 1 in a million chance to go up that mountaintop, to look over, and to see the promised land. A promised land where everything lines up perfectly for all of us to unlock all of the strengths and avoid all of the weaknesses that come with our distinct brain wiring. In retrospect, I was extremely lucky to have parents who gave me the support to be who I am, because they were in many ways the same, and they knew the game is really about surviving until you can shine. I was extremely lucky to be interested enough in English as a foreign language so that I could escape from the extremely structured environment I was in to the United States, the land of freedom, relatively. I was extremely lucky to be interested in math and physics, computers, and artificial intelligence. I was extremely lucky to be accepted by only my last choice out of the more than 20 universities I applied to. I was extremely lucky to have picked computer system engineering as my major simply because it was the only way for me to not take biology. I was extremely lucky to have convinced myself to stay for a 5th year for a master's degree because I knew once I was done with school, I would never be able to persuade myself to go back again. I was extremely lucky to meet my now wife during that 5th year, someone who's the exact opposite of me, who complements all of my weaknesses and yet appreciates me enough to put up with my chaotic existence. I was extremely lucky to have gotten my first internship through only a 30-minute interview at a campus career fair. I was extremely lucky to leave a job 6 months before the business was sold off for 80% loss, followed by a mass layoff. I was extremely lucky to take a job at a startup 5 months before acquisition and negotiated to cut my salary in exchange for more equity at the last moment. I was extremely lucky to be fired and sign a new offer with only 3 hours in between. I was extremely lucky to have had great managers who trusted me with the autonomy I needed to operate. It is all luck. None of these things could ever be planned. Unfortunately, just like creativity, luck is not something that can be taught, not something you can just get by trying harder, not something you can write into a to-do list or schedule on a calendar to stick to. No matter how hard we ask people to try, it is just not practical to expect them to live life relying on luck to survive. And here's the thing. ADHD brains are perfectly designed for leadership. I have seen it in many, many different ways, and I've experienced myself firsthand. However, today, most ADHDers don't even have the chance to survive childhood, to survive school, to survive early career years so that they can experience their superpower for the first time in a leadership position. It is such an irony that our societies are writing off so much natural talent while at the same time spending billions of dollars on leadership training, struggling to teach those who were born to be micromanagers to rewire their brain to think like ours. It is an incomprehensibly inefficient system that puts consistency and predictability before both people and profits. So, as I turn 30 and find myself in this incredibly lucky place with the privilege to ponder what is the one thing I can dedicate the next 10 years of my life to, the picture of the promised land is crystallizing every day, and the voice of do God's will becomes harder and harder to ignore. And it has become increasingly clear to me that to reach the promised land and to make the most out of all the brilliant ADHD brains out there, the world needs orders of magnitudes more leadership opportunities available without the prerequisite of being good followers. In fact, I believe that when it comes to how our society operates, there's a much better alternative, one that involves millions of small and tightly connected atomic communities, one that aims to give everyone the luxury to find purpose and belonging while staying true to who they are, one that embraces neurodiversity and what it's like to be human through each thread of its fabric, and one that shares the common mission to help human be human. I call these communities atomic communities because within these communities, at the subatomic level, individuals shall be free to exist in quantum superposition, and their interactions with others shall be governed via quantum processes as opposed to the deterministic processes we organize ourselves around today. Let me explain. The field of quantum physics has figured this out a long time ago. Uncertainty cannot be eliminated. As individuals, we can only choose to internalize or externalize the uncertainty associated with our existence. So when the world expects human to be more and more consistent, predictable, and perfect, to reduce the uncertainty for the overall deterministic machine to become more efficient, no wonder why most people choose to internalize the uncertainty, creating self-doubt for the greater good. But it doesn't have to be this way. The field of quantum computing has taught us a lot about how to build infinitely more powerful machines than the classical computers we have today by leveraging particles carefully preserved in quantum state. There's no reason why we can't apply the same lessons to building organizations and societies much more efficient than what's considered possible today, that at its core allows human to be human. In fact, most of us are lucky enough to have first-hand experience of this phenomena when we happen to be in the right environment at the right time. Think of how many times you've finished something in a matter of hours when that would have taken someone else days, weeks, if not an eternity to finish. From my own experience, I've built and led atomic teams operating with these principles to create in weeks what other much larger organizations in the company struggled for years to bring to life. By carefully planning what not to plan and preserving the wave function for each individual, by thoughtfully engineering an incentive system, and by purposefully cultivating a culture, we can create what essentially is a human-powered quantum computer to achieve things unimaginable to most people today. If you think of the mode of operation of a society as a product, and people with free will as customers, it's not difficult to see, from that perspective, that we're being offered a centuries-old product that can no longer keep up with our modern-day needs. This quantum leap will not only allow us to create products and services that revolutionizes the world, but also allow us to demonstrate to the billions of customers dissatisfied with today's mainstream product when it comes to running societies that there is a better way, one that's both human-centric and orders of magnitudes more efficient. So how do we get started? Unfortunately, while everyone is able to some extent of being creative, of tapping into their intuition, of acting on subconscious thoughts, 90% of the people lack the brain wiring that would allow them to remain in quantum superposition for long enough to leverage its power. So we're assembling that 10%, the 10% that's completely written off as worthless in today's world, because they can't collapse their wave functions, because they don't make good cogs in today's machine that rely on certainty. At the beginning of the year, we launched the Think Divergent community, bringing passionate ADHD visionaries, creators, and investors together to create the MVP of the atomic community with its own ecosystem. We're happy to announce today a Help Human Be Human 12 Products in 12 Months challenge, where we feature 12 ideas from our community this year, one for each month, and work with the funders to turn them into reality, no string attached. And join us on this mission if you're crazy enough to believe we can create a new world that embraces neurodiversity and what it's like to be human through every thread of its fabric. And so, to my fellow ADHDers, ask not what your community can do for you. Ask what you can do for your community. And to my fellow human beings, ask not what ADHDers will do for you, but what together we can do to help human be human. Thank you.